Well, folks, I'm going to say the two most beautiful words in the English language when you put them together, and they are play ball.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks so much for making us your first listen, as we're available on all your free podcasts and catchers. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. You can tell right there if you watch me on YouTube. You can call me Sully. Today's episode is being dropped on the 7th day of April, 2022, and you know what that means. It's opening day for some teams. Some are already rained out, but we're going to have baseball play today, and not exhibition baseball, not trying to find baseball somewhere else around the world. This is MLB, Major League Baseball, the show, and it begins today. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On MLB Pods. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And when you're at home, be sure to tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On MLB or check out some of the other great shows on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it really is your team every day. Let's just stop and savor today for a moment. We are about to have a 162-game season. It didn't look like that was going to happen just a few weeks ago. Remember the lockout? Remember how it just looked like we weren't even going to have a season at one point? That this thing was just going to drag on? Well, we're going to have one. And the next podcast I'm going to do after this is I'm going to talk about games. I'm going to talk about actual games that were played. And folks, I honestly can't wait. I can't wait because we're talking about this time of the year where everyone seems to have, some semblance of optimism, and you're making your predictions, and that's fun. Predictions are fun. But do you know what's even more fun? Actual freaking games. Now, I'm going to tell you something I'm going to do here on the podcast. And it's something I've been doing on my own blog and, throughout the years. I've been doing something called Who Owned Baseball? And Who Owned Baseball is my own little weird stat, WOB. I've dubbed it WOB. And it stemmed from a few years ago when I was watching the opening day of baseball and Bryce Harper hit a few home runs and Clayton Kershaw pitched a complete game shutout and hit a home run in his complete game shutout. And I said, those two guys own baseball. And that was the beginning of the 2013 season when I was doing the old Sully Baseball podcast. And I decided that I was going to keep a tally of who had the best day. It's subjective, but it's kind of fun. And over the years, it's evolved. And how it works now is I pick a hitter and a pitcher from the American League and National League for a team that won. And then a hitter and pitcher on a team that lost. And if you had the best day for a team that won, you got a full Who Owned Baseball or WOB. And you got half if you had the best day for a team that lost. It's a flawed metric, but it's also just kind of a fun way to see who the highlights and who the best players of the game were. And last year, I tallied that all season long. And last year, the National League hitter with the highest Who Owned Baseball title was Fernando Tatis Jr. with 8. The American League hitter with the highest total was Vladdy Guerrero Jr. with 8.5. The National League pitcher with the highest total was Max Scherzer with 10.5. And Garrett Cole, Sean Manaea, and Shohei Ohtani all had 9 for American League pitchers. But Shohei Ohtani combined total was 14 as a pitcher and a hitter. It's just a fun, goofy thing to do during the season. It helps me kind of take a look at each of the players and each of the teams. And I'm thinking I'm going to, as much as I can, because I'm not doing this 7 days a week, but when I do a podcast during the season, I'm going to begin the show with Who Owned Baseball from the night before. So if you're tuning in, especially if I'm posting one and you're waking up, you didn't get to see who the best hitters and pitchers were for the night before, I'm going to read them off as the Who Owned Baseball. Now, if you're saying, hey, Sully, that's subjective, guess what? You're right. And if you don't like how I do Who Owned Baseball, here's what you can do. You can do it too. It costs me exactly $0.00 to figure this out. So if you want to do your own version of Who Owns Baseball, by all means do it. And we can debate, we can argue. This is part of the fun. This is part of the fun of baseball. Now, we're going to see, which players had the best night, which players had the most unlucky night where they contributed big, but the team didn't contribute around them. This is what I like to do, a heck of a lot more than talking about labor disagreements. So here we go. Now, the Red Sox and the Yankees have been rained out, and it's so confusing where everything's being played. I just put it all on the MLB app. Would you please? Would you please? Even Sunday night, but put everything on there so we always know where it is. Because this is all on MLB Network, except for these games that are on Apple, these games that are on Amazon Prime, these games are on Peacock, these games are on MySpace, these games are on Ask Jeeves. Just put them all in one place. Well, at 11:20 a.m. Pacific Coast time, Hendricks is going to start for the Cubbies. Burns is going to start for the Brewers. And there you go. The Guardians are going to play their first ever game. We'll talk a little bit more about them in the second segment. They're no longer the Indians. They're the Guardians. Get used to that. I'm going to call them the Indians 57 times at least this year. That's another tally I'm going to keep. Bieber is back. And, I almost said Indians. The Guardians have good pitching. They do. Oh, I just put a team around that. Zach Greinke is back with the Royals, and he's going to be pitching there. Brubaker, not the Robert Redford film, is starting for the Pirates. Adam Wainwright is still pitching. He's pitching this year for the Cardinals. They're playing tomorrow. Corbin is starting for the Nationals. And when all the hype was going on for the Mets, who was going to be the opening day starter? Who had Tyler McGill in the pool? Well, he gets the call. Then you have the defending World Series champion Braves are playing the minor league team in Cincinnati. And then right down the 5 from where I am, Shohei Ohtani is starting the season against the defending American League champion Astros, who's starting Framber Valdez. You go a little further away. Actually, no, I thought this was in San Diego. It's actually going to be in Arizona. Madison Bumgarner, and that was a big old beard, is going up against Yu Darvish. The Twins and the Mariners, Yankees, and the Red Sox are already rained out. You know what? Look at. I know it's going to be early April. You can't get excited about things. But just remember at the end of the year, the Blue Jays missed the playoffs by 1 game. The Mariners missed tying for a playoff spot by 2 games. So win a game here or there. Don't have dumb losses, because the dumb losses in April could come back and bite you. And if you're a team like the Angels, who, with all the star power, are a fringe contender for the last wild card team at best. If you want to make any sort of splash this year, come out of the gate. Absolutely come out of the gate. It's weird, but that opening day against the Astros it's a hell of a lot more important to the Angels than it is to the Astros. So much more important, because they have to start the season well. The Astros know they're going to be good. The Astros are going to be a good team and probably a playoff team. I'm picking them to go to the playoffs. I'm actually picking Seattle to go to be the division winner, but it could very well be the Astros. I think only like 1 or 2 games are going to separate the Astros and the Mariners. And I think it's going to be a similar race in the American League, where there's going to be a bunch of teams all between about 92 and 88 wins. And if the Angels want to be one of them, winning games against the Astros right out of the gate can go a long, long way to give him that boost of energy to, I don't know, maybe be a contender. And if you need a boost of energy, can I recommend the Built Bar. In fact, I'm going to recommend the Puffs. If you haven't tried the Puffs, you're missing out on one of the best tasting Built Bars ever. They're the first ever protein infused marshmallow, that they're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors: yummy cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. They're also good. These are going to be my new favorites, although my favorite remains raspberry. I love that tanginess mixed with the chocolate. And it's all covered in 100% chocolate. Yeah, the Puffs included. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They're better. Go to built.com, scroll down, look at the macros chart. You're going to be blown away. You got high protein, low calorie, high fiber, low carb. Most Built bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which is a candy bar. So many great flavors. They're all delicious. And this is what Built Bar does. When they say, hey, I have an idea for a flavor, they make it good first, then they make it healthy. I don't know how they do it, but they do it every time. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. And hey, thanks for making Locked On MLB your first listen every day. Locked On MLB Prospects with friend of the podcast, Lindsey Crosby. He's a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep into the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available where you get your podcasts. Hey, piece of news involving the Guardians. Okay, good. Guardians. Jose Ramirez apparently is not going anywhere. That he has signed a 5-year extension to stay in Cleveland, which will mean he will, if he stays the length of the contract, he'll play about 13 or 14 seasons in Cleveland. And you know what? Frankly, you can't ask more than that in this day and age of free agency, to have your stars spend an entire decade with one team. I'm very happy about that because, as I mentioned before, Cleveland has good pitching. And in a wide open American League, sometimes that's what you need. You know, if they put together, I don't know, just grab a couple of decent bats, just a few, they may win 87, 88 games. What if the White Sox stub their toe? I think the White Sox are going to win the division, but they're not a lock. This is not the Braves of the mid 90s. They could have a slump. They could come crashing to earth. And if that happens, Cleveland's exactly the kind of team that should be able to scoop them up. And of course, they had a absolutely bottom level salaries. The payroll for the team was absolutely laughable. So yeah, they had enough money to sign Jose Ramirez. There you go. And maybe, just maybe, if things click the right way, they'd finally be able to win a World Series. I mentioned the other day that Rochester has had a NBA champion more recently than Cleveland's had a World Series champion. Let's stick to baseball. Brooklyn. Does it seem like a different era when Brooklyn had a baseball team? Well, Brooklyn has a World Series champion more recently than Cleveland. Cleveland was 48, Brooklyn was 55. Come on now, Cleveland. If the window of opportunity is there because it's a wide open American League, the White Sox are good but not invincible, and you got the pitching. I'd love to see Justin Upton turn up with Cleveland. It will cost him nothing. And what if he's mad? What if he wants to show off? Boom. So there you go. The Red Sox apparently lowballed Rafael Devers, and we'll see what happens with that. You know, here's what's going to happen. Devers won't sign. Red Sox fans will get mad. They'll claim they'll never follow the team again, and then they'll win the World Series. That's just what's going to happen. Not this year, though. When I had Millard Thomas on the show, I made my picks. My American, and I'm sticking with all my picks. I had the Mets win the division because I decided to be contrarian. Brewers, Los Angeles, and the National League wildcard teams being Atlanta, San Francisco, and San Diego. In the American League, I have the Blue Jays, I have the White Sox, I have the Mariners winning the division by like a game ahead of the Astros, who's also going to be a wildcard team, as will Tampa Bay. I don't think the Yankees are, and I don't think the Red Sox are. I honestly think that for the first time since 2014, the Yankees and the Red Sox are both going to miss the postseason. I could be wrong. I could have egg in my face. But the fact of the matter is, I do not like the Red Sox starting pitching. I do not like the Yankees starting pitching. And I don't like their depth. Either teams. I think both teams should be able to hit a little bit, but I think the Yankees lineup is not that strong. I think the Red Sox starting pitching staff is razor thin. And one or two injuries would completely derail them. I don't see where they have either one of these teams have 90 wins in them. So I think Minnesota, I picked Minnesota to be the other wild card team because why not? I think they're going to take advantage of beating up on a couple of teams that aren't that great. And I think they're a little bit better. I do. And so we're going to see. But I'm just glad that Cleveland's not completely folding up tent and saying goodbye. And you know what? Good for them. Now acquire one or two more hitters and see the wins pour in. And for all of you who have said, like, oh, I just want to see small market teams, it's not the big market teams anymore. You have a chance to see a mediocre Red Sox team and a Yankee team. So I think you may have your wish. Then, as I said before, both teams missed the postseason in 2014. And I don't remember a lot of people rejoicing. But we'll see. We will see. Look at, I know that saying the Mariners win the division, the Mets win the division, the Twins taking that wild card spot away from the Red Sox and the Yankees. I know those are all long shots. But you know what? Sometimes it's fun to pick a long shot, especially right now. I'm not saying I'm going to bet all my money on it. But, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see if those predictions work. If you're going to make any bets, go to betonline.net. It's your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championships, odds, podcast reviews, and all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline is where the game starts. Before we sign off today, I just want to just say one little thing here. That's actually kind of a big thing. I started a few years ago my tradition of doing an In Memoriam video. I started in 2014, initially as a response to my anger at the All-Star game coverage that year. Tony Gwynn had just died, and they didn't pay tribute to him. They didn't mention him. And I thought it was a disgrace. And I thought the excuses they gave afterwards on Fox were even more disgraceful. They were saying, well, we didn't want to take away from the game, or we didn't want to take away from anyone else who died, because tons of 14-time All-Stars had just died a few weeks prior. It was like, it was like that scene in Lord of the Rings when the dude put the ring on and all of the people just dropped dead. That's what it was like with Hall of Famers. And I got a little bit of attention for that. And I worked on it with my buddy, Rafael Rivera. The two of us put it together in one night in 2014. And then each year after that, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, I did another one. I did the first two with my buddy, Rafael Rivera, and I've done each one of them since on my own. And I always would drop them at the All-Star game. Although it changed in the COVID season because there was no All-Star game, and I decided to drop it on opening day. And seeing that I think the season should start on opening day, I figure that's actually kind of more of an appropriate way. Like before we start the season, let's tip our hats to those whom we have lost. Well, last year was an epic because there were 9, count them, 9 Hall of Famers who died between the start of the COVID season and the beginning of the 2021 season. Count them off. Phil Niekro, Don Sutton, Tom Lasorda, Lou Brock, Bob Gibson, Tom Seaver, Whitey Ford, Joe Morgan, and oh yeah, Henry Aaron. And also there are other people, Dick Green was in there. Chadwick Boseman, who had played Jackie Robinson, was in there. There was some other, a bunch of people. And also my dad, who I paid tribute to at the beginning. Well, I just posted the new one for 2022. There were no Hall of Famers this year. And I went to RIP MLB, which is the Twitter feed where they announce all the players when they die. I was just refreshing that like crazy, going like, okay, come on, let's make sure no one else passed away today. Come on, Willie Mays, keep breathing. Come on, Rachel Robinson, keep breathing. And fortunately, Tommy Davis died over the weekend. I got him in. A couple other people died in the last couple of weeks who I got into the montage, but there were still some people in there like Jerry Remy, like J.R. Richard, like Tommy Davis, like Ray Fosse that, you know, made my little bottom lip tremble a little bit when I put their pictures in. To me, it's a way to pay tribute to those who we've lost forever and whose impact on the game will go on beyond their life. And I'm going to post it on my personal site at Sully Baseball. I can't post it on the Locked On MLB YouTube page because of there are various. Let's just put it this way: there might be some conflicts if I do there, but I posted it on my own site, which is at Sully Baseball. If you follow me on Twitter, you can see it. And I hope you enjoy it. And if you like it, send it to people. And hopefully it's a way to sort of, before we start the season, we move back a little bit, because baseball at its best has the illusion of living in the past, present, and future simultaneously, that timeless feel. And it's not really timeless. It's an illusion, but it's a fun illusion. And when people die and we lose some of the players from our youth, you kind of have to take a step back and remember, no, it is bound by time, and we do lose people. And it's important to pay respects to those who are gone and respect the past as we look forward to the future and the 2022 season, which is about to start. So follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at Locked On MLB Pods. If you follow me at Sully Baseball on Twitter and Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, please watch the In Memoriam video. And if you enjoy it, show it to people who you might think will appreciate it. And hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen. And let's play ball. This is Locked On MLB for the 7th day of April, 2022. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.